Thank you so much, and appreciate it to the Hub24 team for giving me this opportunity. Behavioural sciences has been one of these things that financial services always started to look at, especially in the wake of the Royal Commission. I recognise that advisors are looking at different ways of engaging with clients. So in behavioural science, there's a lot of theory and deep diving into analysis, and it can get quite overwhelming at times. So my intention for today is not to go there, but really just share a couple of things that I seek to put into my role as an advisor and bake into the work that I do with clients. From a background perspective, I'm one of the co-founders of XY Advisor and feel very fortunate to be part of that journey from the beginning. My work as the head of wealth at Pivot is really looking at younger clients between 30 to 40, a lot of younger tech professionals who are looking at solving their money problems. From an education side of things, I've completed a degree in applied social science and social psychology, so I've done a little bit of work with Sydney University, putting together a teaching case there, and the idea was really to see what learnings financial services could take from psychology and build something somewhere in between. So yeah, I'd be delighted to answer any other questions that come off the back of that. All right, so away we go with the presentation. As a foundational piece for behavioral science, what it's looked to answer is really in opposition to what economists would call econs. And the idea was really that in traditional economics, that people are very rational beings, and that in simple supply versus demand matrix, people will behave in a rational way. The founding fathers, I suppose, of behavioral finance, Kahneman, Tversky, Richard Thaler are names that you may be familiar with. They've really caricatured this econ type figure, which behaves in the ideal way that an economist would have you believe. But we all know that that's not the case. We don't always make rational decisions, and we don't always make the best decisions with our money, because from a pragmatic perspective, it would make sense to do that. I wanted to share this slide because it talks about all the biases and heuristics that influence the way in which we think, and I don't want to go through all of them here, but I do just want to call out that you will hear a lot of buzzwords when looking at behavioral science and psychology. But these what this shows me is that there's a lot of different things at play when people make decisions about money. So if we can just keep that in mind when working with people, we do ourselves a little bit of a favor there. This is a slide I used to have printed out on my desk as an advisor. It's by the Visual Capitalist guys, I believe, and yeah, they do some really lovely work if anyone's interested in exploring visual data. So what we're going to talk about today is the third space. It's an idea by Dr. Adam Fraser, managing in ambiguity and change. And really what I've stripped out there is some of the learnings from my psychology degree, and then this idea of map defenders, which I recently learned about, and that was from Carl Richards, who is the sketch guy. He did a presentation through XY Advisor quite recently, so I've pinched a bit of his magic and look forward to sharing that with you today as well. So the third space, what is it? Basically, what Adam Fraser talks about is if you find it hard to walk through the door after a long day of work without bringing the disappointment of losing a client or a frustration of a meeting, and then you start to find that you're bringing that into your family or in your home life, it's you know, something that I'm sure is an alien to a lot of us. There's a potential reason why, and he calls it the third space. The reason why I wanted to spend time banging on about this is because for me personally, the third space is my commute time, and I make a point of being active in allowing myself to, what my wife would say, defrag from the workday and come in as a husband rather than an employee that's carrying work from the day. So we'll talk about that for a moment. But again, the reason why, especially in COVID times, I recognize that we've lost a lot of our transits, which means I know for myself, I'm at my folks' place at the moment. I'm in my living room, I work here, and then I'm in the lounge room over there, and there's no third space. There's no transition between my days. So the first space, what Dr. Adam Fraser talks about is literally what you're doing now. It's listening to me and engaging in the present. The second space is thinking about what you're about to do. It's looking at the future, maybe talking about lunchtime, what you're going to do there. Later on in the day, thinking about those sorts of things. The third space is the transition, and really it's where that magic happens. So the matrix that he has here is reflect, rest, and reset. So in the third space, reflecting is as you move away from your day, reflect, make sense of it. Now, when you ask a busy set of high achievers to reflect on their day, what will they think about? Everything that went wrong, everything that sucked. What we found out was that when people reflect on their day, they were thinking from a cynical basis. So what we want to get people to do instead is to reframe things. So what went well today? What was something new that you learned? For again, my wife and I, a little game that we play every day is high, low, buffalo. Tell me what the highest thing of your day was. Tell me the lowest point, and tell me that weird or different thing that you didn't expect to come out. That's your buffalo. I think it was Henry Ford that said you focus on what you focus on grows. So it's a little bit akin to that. The resting piece is really to calm your mind, and there's a lot of mindfulness and meditation. Look, I recognize the benefits of it. I'm not a natural meditator, so my version of that is exercise, I guess. And then to finally reset, so realign your mindset about what is about to happen, and just making sure that you're setting yourself up in the best way there. I do want to call out here that one of the best ways to enhance the third space is to get physical. I'm very fortunate to live in the northern suburbs of Sydney, and my commute to work is basically a 5-kilometre walk across the bridge, which is awesome. What that means is I've given myself the obligation to make sure that I do walk as many days as I can in a normal working day, and to get physical. And the benefits of physical exercise, I don't need to go into the detail here, but you would definitely get a sense that if you exercise, your mind thanks you for it. So do keep that in mind as a way of achieving the third space. But also think about how you can bake that in with working from home, being at home, kids at home. What are you going to do to make sure that this happens? My wife and I, we break our day up. So we go for a walk in the morning, then we get our coffee, and then we come in, we start the work day. Then at about midday, we go out, we grab lunch. We try to emulate what a normal work day is, and bring that in with a view of getting physical. The ambition there for us is to get 10,000 steps in a day, and that's a target to make sure we've given ourselves enough of that third space. Keep it in mind for your kids as well, right? Because they've lost their commute time coming to and from school. So thinking about how you might bake that in as a family, I really encourage you to do it. Managing in ambiguity and change. So the first thing that I want to call out here is that it's okay to not feel okay when things are down. This sketch is actually from Carl Richards, and basically there's a whole bunch of things that matter, and a whole bunch of things that you can control, but really where we want to focus is in that overlap. Things like what's going on at the moment are clearly out of our control. It does matter, but where we should be focusing is in the overlap there. To share from Dr. Adam Fraser, his version of that is this: he uses the SAFE acronym. So in situations where things are going wrong, and this is something I would encourage you to think about for your clients, is to allow them to sit with the discomfort. That's the S of the SAFE. Don't expect them to feel positive during a struggle. It's okay for them to be shocked or upset about what's going on, and for them to be needing you to consult with them. Accept your reaction without judgment. So not to beat yourself up about what's going on. And he goes on to say that we all have different types of struggles. Don't waste time challenging your thoughts or emotions. Rather, just focus on the most constructive action you can take. Focus on the development that comes from struggle, and I totally get how difficult it can be to try and think constructively when you're in an emotionally charged situation. I don't mind allowing my emotions to drive me at the best of times. So, for me, this is a really helpful framework to just try and always make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success, and engage with constructive behaviors that help you win the moment. So SAFE, Dr. Adam Fraser, he's the father of the third space. He's got a book out. If this is helpful, or if this is ringing true at some level, I really would encourage you to engage with him and his content, because he does work quite closely with financial services, and everything he said to date is just like, yeah, happy with that. That makes a lot of sense. So baking in a little bit of safe into your day. Map defenders. This is an enormous one that Carl Richards shared with us, and he went through. I'm not going to do his presentation as well as service as it deserves, but I will do my best. So he goes through this journey of talking about what financial advice and financial advisors used to go through. So in the early days, financial services, the industry was selling whole of life policies. Then we migrated into investment management, and advisors were investment managers. That's the work that they were doing with their clients. Then we had technology and tools that allowed us to work with our clients and build these financial plans, which effectively are 20-year roadmaps that have this straight line projection of all of the assets, all of the income, all of the tax, every single year, what's supposed to happen, compound out, and you get these really wonderful results, right? But we all know that life is not a straight line projection. So what Carl Richards cautions us against is becoming a defender of a map. So a map defender has a client who comes in disgruntled because the market's dropped dramatically as a result of a pandemic, as an example, and he's worried. He's going, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this means. I'm freaking out right now. The defender of a map will then turn around and start to defend himself or herself and pull up facts or figures or reasons why this could not have been anticipated, and it comes from a defensive angle, but it's not a constructive conversation. The alternative to being a map defender, and this is really where that transition that Carl Richards is encouraging us as financial advisors to get to, is to leave that world alone, recognize we've got no idea what's going to happen in the future, but see ourselves more as navigators. He uses the analogy of pilots, right? So he asks every pilot whether or not they have a detailed flight plan for a flight that they're about to take, and they always say, yeah, we've got a detailed flight plan. We need to have a detailed flight plan. Cool. Think of that as a financial plan. And then he says, okay, well, how many of your flights actually go to plan? And the answer is very rarely. So it's not for a pilot to be able to anticipate the storm necessarily, but what you don't want is in a storm for the pilot to come out of the cockpit and go, and start to freak out, to say, I don't know what's going on, we're in a storm, it's the last thing you want to see your pilot do, right? What the pilot does, and what Carl Richards says a good advisor or a future-minded advisor will do, is to say, yeah, we're in a storm, this is bad. I'm with you here. What I can say is I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how deep the storm is, but I do know that there's no one that knows your finances better than me, and that us as a team, there's no better setup to make sure that we can get you through it. So it's not about talking about this 12-year, 20-year plan and selling this false sense of precision, which is ultimately destined for failure, but rather thinking a little bit more like a startup, where it's always just about making the next right step and the next right step and the next right step. And over 20 years, if you make a point of continuing to pivot and review and just make that next right step, that over that long term, that's really where that proposition sits. So I don't know that I would have done him justice, but Carl Richards, map defenders to navigators, it's really changed a lot of the framing in the way that I have conversations with clients. I can say it's quite liberating as well to have this big spreadsheet up and say, look, this is 20 years, this is a straight line projection. Now, this gives us a sense of what might happen, but frankly, I don't want you to walk out of here with a 92.35% level of confidence that you're going to achieve all of your financial objectives, because that's what the Monte Carlo simulator says, but rather let's just say that this gives us a good guide, and for right now, this is the right decision. It's liberating, and clients get it, you know. I think they get a deep sense of honesty if you show a level of not being able to predict the future. There's a level of vulnerability to say, well, I don't know, but we can figure this out as we go along. The value proposition there changes. So as a next piece here, the peak end theory is a theory in psychology, and it talks about how people remember experiences. And it's really, really, really important that advisors keep this in mind. And I thought about it specifically for meeting structures, but I would think of it for any sort of presentation that you're doing, when you're on the telephone with anybody, any conversations you're having, any emails that you're putting together. Always keep this peak end theory in mind. And what it basically says is that with any engagement that you have with somebody, they're going to have two takeaways: the peak emotional state and the end, the peak end theory, right? So that puts pressure on how you finish things and nailing that peak emotional state. So I thought about it, and when I originally was doing financial services in my earliest iterations, this is what a traditional meeting structure would look like. We'd have our welcomes and things would get better, and we would talk about all these lovely things. If I were having that meeting in a Corona type time where the portfolio's absolutely gone haywire, there's no avoiding that, right? Like, that's the elephant in the room. So it becomes this bloody thing that we we try to avoid talking about, and it's like, okay, now, all right, we've talked about the assets, talked about liabilities, talked about work. Now let's talk about the portfolio. And then you get that peak emotion. Peak emotions can be down as well, which this image shows. Then we have a conversation about, okay, let's say that we don't know what's going to happen right now, but we can start to put a plan ahead. Let's think about, okay, this isn't a forever thing. What are the things that we can control? Let's get ourselves and our best foot forward and start planning for the year ahead. And because action's been taken, we start to feel a little bit better. And you see on my graph, we start to get a little bit happier there. And we're not quite at the point that we were when we were at that welcome stage drinking that lovely coffee. But now it's not as bad as it was, thankfully. We go all the way through, finish the review document, and then it's like, all right, by the way, ongoing service agreement, here's a bunch of compliance stuff, here's what you paid me last year, and here's what I need you to pay me for the year ahead. Is that okay? Yeah, I suppose so. All right, no worries, see you later. So you can imagine here, Mr. and Mrs. Client in the car on the way home from an appointment. They would not, there are two very clear points that they will remember in this. So this is just a traditional structure. Now, what I was thinking, and how I've pivoted away from that meeting structure to what I'm doing now is I try to front load all of my conversations with the elephants in the room. And I have to say, I feel like it's done a lot of favors, not only with working with clients, but working with colleagues or any other type of engagement, where now we do the welcomes and the pleasantries. I get the formalities, the ongoing service agreement piece out of the way first and foremost. And then what I want to do is make sure that we're calling out any potential issues immediately. So yes, the portfolio is down. We're in unprecedented times. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and there's no way that we could have known that this was going to happen. What does that mean? All right, let's focus on what we can control. We start talking about the year ahead. And I hope I've not misrepresented the structure too much here, but hopefully you can see what I've tried to show is that the real estate of the meeting now is all talking about the year ahead. It's all talking about action. It's all talking about the things that we can control. So the intent there is to create a peak emotion that's less about the portfolio performance, more about the year ahead, giving much more real estate to the planning piece as opposed to what we saw here previously. And obviously, as we start to take action, there's a natural attrition of emotion, which is where that NP starts to drop off there. But I get a sense that these clients leaving my office to these clients leaving my office will get a very different sense of things. So peak end theory, very practical tool. Keep it in mind. Have a crack. Have a go. I'd encourage you to do it with a friendly client or someone that you can trust won't flinch too much at a change of a process. If it doesn't work for you, then that's okay. But I can say that it certainly worked for me. Guys, that was really everything for today. I did want to keep it nice, short, sharp, and practical. So I truly hope it was of value. We are having a conversation in XY Advisor. We've got an app available on the App Store and Google Play. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, I'll be hanging out there. There's a lot of young and old advisors, but all doing interesting ideas. So it would be lovely to continue the chat there. Thank you very much.